The operating system was created to be an abstraction between the computer and the human using it. It was meant to be an intermediary that helps us interact with the computer with a terminal or a GUI, which is a graphical user interface, which is what you're using probably right now. Um, and they all require some very fundamental and hard to write code called a kernel. Our kernel being like, if you imagine the layers between you and the pure zeros and ones mechanical computer parts, the kernel is the innermost layer. That's why it's called the kernel. And that's the part that actually translates human readable commands over to machine code, zeros and ones binary. And not many have been written across human history. If you look at the most common kernels, they're less than 3 or 5 actually. You have the Unix kernel, which gave us Android, and later deviation of it gave us OpenBSD or FreeBSD, which you might not know by name, but actually powers Mac OS. We have the Windows NT kernel for Windows, obviously, and a couple other smaller ones that run on, smart devices and whatnot. But so why do I say that we've reached the death of the OS? Well, OSs aren't actually going anywhere. As long as we have computers, we will need an OS. That's basically a given. They're just too fundamental of a concept to get rid of, I imagine. I'm not saying that OSs will go away. I'm saying the concept of an OS is becoming less and less important, and perhaps will just perish and people won't care. Most people already don't really know what OS they're using. I mean, you ask non-tech savvy people, what OS do you have on your laptop, for example, and they will say, "Oh, I'm not quite sure. Whatever came with it." And 9 times out of 10 it's Windows, right? And it's the same with smartphones, understandably so. And recently, what I've been seeing at least, is a lot of companies will call their SaaS product, their software product, an OS for blah blah blah. You can see like AI-powered sales tools that are called Sales OS or whatever. Or, for example, there were some. There's a terrorist company called Palantir, who works for different terrorist forces, like the U.S. government and the Israeli government. And for example, they call their little terrorism product the Defense or Attack OS, but it's not an OS. It's just a very nice dashboard, is what it is, right? So the concept of an OS is becoming more and more watered down, which is, I think, harmful in the long term. I think what these people are actually building most of the time are just dashboards. But it's true that sometimes what they're building is a little bit more than just a dashboard. Sometimes you can do proper work disconnected from the rest of your computer, right? Some people have, I've been seeing videos of people configuring things like Cloud Cowork, which is an AI-powered little working tool. The idea is that you set it up to control your computer. You can create files and folders and do tangible work, which is cool technology. Of course, it comes with certain privacy concerns, but so does any other new technology, right? And in that sense, if you have a customized environment and it lives inside your OS, but also as like a separate little environment, I think we should have a new term for this sort of thing. No, I haven't done any research on this, so this is all my interpretation of it. But I will call these products or systems operating environments. An environment, an abstract shell or container or facade that you're in, that doesn't have a kernel. That's the key point. It doesn't have the ability to directly manipulate memory or hardware on the machine. It can only go as far as um, doing surface level stuff or high level stuff. So things that the user will interact with directly. Um, why do I say this? Well, because people are using AI agents more and more on their computers, and they're becoming good enough now. I mean, if you look at some AI benchmarks, one of them in particular called Terminal Bench, which measure how good the AI agent is at using your computer terminal, be it the Mac OS terminal or the Linux terminal, and I think maybe Windows PowerShell, but I'm not sure. You'll see that they're becoming good enough to really manipulate the way we use computers. Well enough that in the near future, and I don't mean like in like the 2030-ish sense, I mean like next year, we might come to a point where you could probably navigate a computer perfectly fine without a mouse and keyboard, just through voice, or you know, if Cloud Cowork and other products become good enough, you'll be able to leave your actual proper workstation device at your home, take out your smartphone and send some commands for your smartphone, and have the agent work for you or do certain tasks remotely. This already being done, mind you. It's just that it's gonna need a bit more polish. I've tried it out myself, and it's very iffy at times. So it's exciting stuff for sure. We're seeing the first fundamental change in how we use computers in about 30 years, if not 50. It depends on whether or not you choose the internet as a fundamental change in how we use computers. You can argue that, um, since I mean, you can say that, well, the browser and the internet is separate from the OS, and the OS can have internet connectivity, but it's a secondary thing, and yeah, that's fine. But no matter how you slice it, whether you decide that Xerox's Alto or the Macintosh was the cutoff for like the GUI era of graphical user interfaces or not, or if the mid to late 90s, when the internet sort of had its first boom, was the last proper change in how we use computers. No matter how you slice it, we're looking at a 30-year gap here of how we use computers. You can argue that the smartphone was probably a jump on its own with the move to touch, but if you actually stop and think, it's not really. The sort of tasks that you do on computers haven't actually changed that much. We still have files and folders and menus and side panels and whatnot. So the UX has certainly adapted for touch, but I wouldn't consider it a big enough jump like the one we had with, going from MS DOS, for example, to Windows 95 and whatnot. So this is a shorter video. I hope that you at least agree or would like to discuss some of these topics with me, because it's something that I care about very deeply. I think OSs are very important because the OS you choose decides so much of your experience with the computer. And since computers are so important in our day-to-day lives, I feel like the OS should, it's almost sacred. It's so important to your daily life, right? I mean, it's like choosing where you're gonna live almost, right? You spend a lot of time trying to find an apartment or a house or whatever to move into, because you know how much time you're gonna spend there and how much it's gonna affect your day-to-day life. And I would argue that, like, most of us, we're screen addicts, right? So we use phones and computers like 6 hours a day, 10, right? So you spend a lot of waking hours on these devices. So if you're gonna spend that much time on them, shouldn't you choose where you're gonna live in here in the digital realm, or at least choose wisely? So this is gonna be it. Thank you for watching.